All right. So moving on to the next acquisition. It's funny because this was a guy I called for the Mets to trade for last year, but Luis Robert Jr. No longer a Chicago White Sox. Um, it's funny because he should have been moved at last year's deadline. It was no secret he fell out of favor with the White Sox organization. He was a malcontent. Why would you want a guy in your clubhouse who doesn't want to be there? He made it known he didn't want to be there. They held on to him throughout the season. He was in and out of the lineup as if he was some minor league call up or some bench utility guy. When the guy's a former All Star, former Silver Slugger, and I was always under the belief that a change of scenery for him would bring him back to form. Because again, this guy's playing in a place he does not want to be there. We remember the White Sox used to run the AL Central for a couple of years. Then after they gave Tony La Russa the axe, they started losing. And then all these guys either started to decline or they got rid of them. Eloy Jimenez, Tim Anderson, Yasmani Grandal, the list goes on and on. And they kept Luis Robert, traded away Andrew Vaughn, put Robert on the bench in the stash, and now finally got rid of him. So I'll start with you, Tom. Do you think that this is a great pickup because the Mets had a need for center field? We heard that Carson Benj may have competed for a spot. Tyrone Taylor's still on the roster. Do you think Luis Robert is the center fielder that we need now that Cody Bellinger is no longer on the market?
I think he can be. I think there's a lot to. I think you're kind of right, and I've heard it a few times that like Luis Robert just didn't want to be there, which I get because look, I guess I unintentionally wore black to pay respects to the career of Luis Angel Acuna because he just got sent to baseball purgatory. So I think he definitely wanted out. I do still. It does make me nervous because it's 2 seasons of kind of really subpar play. But look, you gave up Luis Angel Acuna, who really didn't have a spot on this team. He was going to be your guy that you put in to pinch run. You know what I mean? And maybe pick up a couple of games at second base, maybe. So you really didn't give up much for him. At worst, he's Juan Lagares. At best, he's a guy who can really lengthen that lineup when it gets to the bottom because he'll probably be batting like 6th or 7th, I'd have to imagine. So I like that we have a definitive can play center fielder. You're not going to have to worry about his defense. And since Benj does kind of project more to be a left fielder, if we're bringing him up, I know we're doing it a lot around the infield of playing guys out of position. I would rather play a young guy where he's comfortable just to get him acclimated to the majors. And if you want to move him to center at some point because Robert doesn't work out, at least he's got a base around and being like, okay, I can play here. I can play this outfield. I can hit at this major league level. So I'm all for it. I think Luis Robert is not perfect, but he is what the Mets needed.
Okay, and Barry, what's your take on Luis Robert? Are you going to miss Angel Acuna? Luis Angel Acuna? Do you think they should have gave up Mauricio instead?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna miss Acuna just because I just like the player. He probably would have never met my expectations for him, right? Because we know his brother, we know how great his brother is, and you're always going to have that. Can he be that, right? But he's not that. He's a different player, right? Problem with Luis Angel Acuna with the Mets is that he was out of options, and I do believe that at some point you would have looked at that roster, and David Stearns would have to make a very, very hard decision, and he probably would have had to DFA him. So the fact that you can be able to attach him to a trade for a guy, for a need that you have in center field, guy that's a former Gold Glover, former Silver Slugger, former All-Star, 2 years removed from having a really, really career year, you have to take that chance because you really didn't give up anything. And the biggest thing for that with me is that, yes, he was a malcontent in Chicago, but can you blame him? The White Sox are a dumpster fire. They are a terrible team. And what people have to realize is that I know you're not an analytics guy, but you're a numbers guy. So when the talk started to heat up around Robert getting traded, he had the best stretch of hitting in the season because he was like, okay, it's time to go, right? I got to go show people how good I am so I can be able to get the hell out of here, right? Another example of that is Andrew Vaughn. Andrew Vaughn got traded from the White Sox to the Brewers. He could not play a lick on the White Sox because he didn't care. He goes to the Brewers and he's hitting 309, 9 home runs, 20 plus RBIs in 40 games or 60 games. people just wanted to get out of there because it's purgatory. It's hell. So I'm not going to fault a 27, 28-year-old kid that really doesn't want to be in a situation that's not beneficial for him. He's already getting paid, so it's not like he's playing for a contract right now. And the thing is that with him here, with all of the veterans that we have, with the culture that we're building in regards to so much international flavor that we have on the Mets, he's going to fit right in and feel at home right away. So he's going to have a lot of people that he can be able to, talk to, throw things off of, get advice from. So he's going to be fine here. I'm not worried about Robert here. I'm not going to worry about him at all. I think it was a great trade. I don't think when you look at it from a grand scheme of things, we gave up anything. We really didn't. We gave up a guy that was an extra infielder on our team. He wasn't our prospect, again, to your point that David Stearns doesn't like guys who are not his guys, right? And he had no more options left. So it was either DFA him or trade him, and they got somebody that was willing to take him. So it's a win-win for the Mets.
Yeah, and on top of that, I just feel like with the infield log jam that there was, that you and I talked about the last time you were on the show when we signed Polanco. Again, where were you going to make room for Acuna? With Bo Bichette in the mix, that like completely was going to either hurt him or Mauricio. Surprised they held on to Mauricio because I feel like there's more value in Mauricio if you were going to flip somebody for something. But again, I like Mauricio more than I like Acuna, so I'm glad that we got rid of Acuna and not Mauricio. You look at Luis Robert, he doesn't have an injury history, which is always a plus. I just hope that he doesn't end up like the last Cuban outfielder we had, where he's breaking his foot chasing boars and all this other type of stuff.
Well, if you're gonna talk about that Cuban outfield, he got us to a World Series.
He did. He hit a home run like every day.
Well, Daniel Murphy had 8 straight in that postseason stretch too.
But if it wasn't for that Cuban outfielder knocking in home runs literally every day in the season, the second half of the season, we don't get to the World Series. So
that's always true. For all of you out there, I recommend you check out that 3 Days in Queens documentary that SNY put together. Some really
it's amazing.
Carl McNeil says if they brought all the players back, they would be the Phillies. Okay, yeah, Phillies made no moves, just re-signings. He also says if they could only keep Robert Jr. healthy, we'd have a possible cleanup hitter. So next question, where in the lineup do you think Luis Robert is going to hit? Would you make him 4th?
No, I'd probably put him. Probably to start the season like 6th or 7th. I know there's a joke there somewhere, but I'm not making it. I'd probably put him there only because, again, like his offensive numbers in Chicago have not been great for the last couple of years. I don't want to put a lot of pressure on him. Just go in, come play center field. Let's see if you can recapture some of that magic. You're on a team that is looking to contend. And then if he proves that bat was just that he was just giving up on Chicago and he could still hit, maybe you can move him up to 4 or 5. But I would definitely probably keep him towards the bottom, and especially if he does get hot, it lengthens the lineup even more.
Makes sense.